There is no such thing as a fully fledged Diablo playing experience on a mobile platform. That is completely impossible. I'm going to explain why I think so in this video, but first let's do a little bit of a disclaimer here. I have a small YouTube channel and I talk mainly about my favorite 3D fighting games like Tekken. I focus on instructional content because that's fun to make and it's somewhat useful for people. I don't try and jump on controversial or hot topics because I'm not interested in deliberately growing the channel or getting my opinions out there. This is just a hobby for me in my spare time, and that's my motivation. I'm trying to turn one of my favorite video games into a fun creative project for myself. So why am I all of a sudden talking about Diablo Immortal? It seems very off topic for a guy like me, right? Well, I think the first reason is that I am faking none of my outrage here, and I am actually genuinely outraged by the reveal of Diablo Immortal, which is strange for me. It's not typically the kind of thing that affects me at all, but I honestly feel spoken down to. I feel insulted. I feel a little bit sick to my stomach, and Diablo Immortal kind of ruined my day yesterday. And so I wanted to deconstruct that in my mind a little bit. I heard about the game for the first time yesterday, by the way. I thought it was real for a total of 3 seconds. I saw the title. I thought it was going to be a new real Diablo game. I had this confused excitement for about 3 seconds. And then I realized that it was a mobile game, and that translated into an entire day of being in a bad mood and feeling disappointed and cynical. And so I needed to sort of think about why it affected me in that way and get those thoughts out into a video so that I can move on with my life. When I'm done making this video, by the way, I'm going to go down to the river with my friends and feed the river turtles. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I just need to, for the sake of my sanity, digest this topic a little bit before I do that. So you're going to have to suffer through that for the sake of my sanity, and I'm sorry about that. Should I start by talking about my experiences with the Diablo franchise? I think that might be superfluous. I could tell you emotional stories about playing Diablo with my sister and with my dad, about, you know, precious memories from my childhood and so on. I don't think it's necessary. Anybody who played these games and who grew up playing these games knows how precious the franchise is and has their own memories of playing it. So let's leave that. I mean, it needs to be said that I liked all 3 main games in the franchise, and that even though I am a fighting game guy recently, I came to fighting games quite late in life, and for most of my game playing career growing up, I started playing video games at age 4, I was an RPG guy. And I think Lord of Destruction is one of the greatest RPGs of all time. I think most people would agree. It has aged so well that I still install it on my PC sometimes to this day, and it still holds up. It's still as addictive and fun as it always has been. So it's an amazing, amazing game. But I don't need to tell you that because you probably already know. So let's leave that and get to the topic I want to talk about, which is why I think the game has seen such a negative backlash and why I feel the way I do about it. And I've thought about it a lot, and I have 2 main reasons I want to talk about. The first one is the one I mentioned briefly in the intro of this video, which is that I don't think there can be such a thing as a good Diablo game on mobile. So why is that the case? Well, when you make a new game in a franchise, I think you necessarily need to change some things, add some things. You need to evolve it and take it in a little bit of a new direction to make it, you know, for there to be a point in making a new game in that franchise. So that's completely fine. But there are these certain hallmarks, especially of a franchise as legendary as Diablo, that are at the core of what those games are and why they work. And you don't want to mess with them, because then you're suddenly making something else. I mean, Hearthstone has a World of Warcraft coat of paint on it, but if you think it has a lot of similarities to World of Warcraft gameplay-wise, then, you know, you're obviously wrong. So with Diablo, if we're going to talk about some of these important hallmarks that make it impossible for a Diablo game to work on mobile, think of any given scene or situation of you playing one of the older games. You're exploring this constantly evolving map around you, and you're being attacked by enemies who are running at you from all directions, shooting at you from all directions, teleporting in and out. So you're constantly manipulating your positioning. You're sometimes repositioning your character several times per second. You're looking at all the enemies and monitoring the map that is growing around you, but you're also monitoring your health and your resource system. You're using multiple abilities, sometimes only one or two if you're playing Diablo 2, but usually you have other stuff hotkey that you need to switch in between, and you're monitoring all the item drops that are happening all around you. So for example, you're maybe at low health and about to die. Diablo is necessarily dark, deep, and difficult in its gameplay, and it's easy for you to die most of the time. You're frail compared to most other RPGs. So you're looking around and you realize that you're about to die, but there's a health potion over there on the ground that if you can get to can save you. So you need to use clever movement or abilities to get around all the enemies and try and get to that potion. You get to it in time, you manage to replenish your health, and now you're back in the fight. And this really high-paced, intense gameplay just keeps on going, and it's so addictive and it's so much fun. And it is why the franchise works gameplay-wise. In my opinion, a lot of other great things like, you know, atmosphere and so on. And so, can you make that work on a mobile platform? Well, I don't think so, and the reason is that your controlling capabilities are not going to be sophisticated enough to make all these constant, precise movements because you're working with a touchscreen. Diablo is typically played with a keyboard and mouse, and you're clicking several times per second. You're using multiple different buttons. If you're playing Diablo 3 on console with a controller, that also kind of works in my opinion, but you're playing with a sophisticated controller with precision, with many different buttons. You're not trying to slide and drag and tap on a touchscreen. So that is so different that I don't think that you can have a sophisticated enough controller to make Diablo work on a mobile device. That's the first hallmark I'm going to talk about. The other one is the camera perspective of Diablo. Diablo has always had this top-down perspective on your character. There are many RPGs that use that perspective, but Diablo, I think, is the defining game that does this. And it's also one thing that I think necessarily needs to exist in a Diablo game. And so when you're working with a screen about that big, are you going to make the character you're playing so small that you can't see the character animations and abilities and see what your character is doing, but you get a nice view of the world around you that, like I say, you need to have a good perspective on because the map is growing, there are enemies everywhere, they're attacking you from off screen? Or do you zoom in so far on your character that you can see the character and appreciate what they're doing, but you lose the very important perspective on your environment? I think it's extremely difficult to make that work on a screen, and especially when it's a touch screen, meaning that part of that very limited space is being occupied by the fingers you're touching the touchscreen with. So you're obscuring, your poor controller capabilities are obscuring the poor perspective that you already have. So it's a perfect shitstorm of why Diablo, gameplay-wise, just does not work on a mobile device at all. And I could keep on going. One thing that they kept coming back to, if we're going to keep talking about gameplay for a little bit, is how it's going to be a lot of fun sharing the demon slaying experience with people, with your family and so on. And that also is just a fundamental misunderstanding of how Diablo works, because Diablo has always been an extremely satisfying single-player experience. You can play it with friends and you can play it online, and that has been fun as well, but it's been a very good single-player game. And I think the most important multiplayer aspect of Diablo is when you're trying to make a character in a specific build, you need these specific items, and so you're constantly hunting for these rare items, but the chance that you're going to find the specific thing that you're looking for is quite small. So you can find something extremely valuable, but that is of no interest to your character, so you can interact with other people and trade. And so the fact that there's a trade aspect, multiplayer aspect of the game, I think is very important. But that's the most important one. You can socialize, you can play in a group with friends. I've had a lot of fun doing that, but that's not the core experience. It's not about sharing the demon slaying experience with your family or whatever. For me, and I think for a lot of people, what you do when you want to play Diablo is you turn off your cell phone, you turn down the lights, and you enjoy and sink into the great atmosphere of this game. And it's not about being around and talking about it with other people. Even though it has had multiplayer aspects to it that I think are important. So again, I think the core hallmarks and important hallmarks of the franchise, gameplay-wise, do not work on a mobile platform unless you have a mobile phone that is as large as a television screen and you can plug in a very precise and sophisticated controller to it. But at that point, you're already making a console game or a PC game anyway, so why bother making it a mobile game? I think if you get up on stage and you announce that we're currently not working on a sequel for Diablo, people would be disappointed right now, and they would be making videos complaining about that, but it wouldn't have nearly this kind of negative backlash. But what happens is when you try and make something that obviously isn't going to be Diablo. I mean, everybody who knows this franchise and loves it, which is, you know, millions of people across the world, they instantly realize that it's not going to work on mobile, so there's not going to be a new real Diablo game. So that's the actual announcement. But then they try and tell you that it is, and they try and convince you that it is, and they try and spoon feed it to you anyway, and that's the point where it becomes an insult. That's the point where it becomes them talking down to you. That's when you feel less like a valued consumer and more like cattle being farmed for your attention and your wealth and your resources by a large company. That's when you get disgusted, and that's when a trailer for a game like this has 20,000 likes, I think, at this point, and something like 500,000 or 600,000 dislikes. It's one of the most explosive negative backlashes I've ever seen, because you don't treat people like that. Now, let's get to the other aspect. Because I mentioned there were two big reasons I think there's such a backlash to this game. The first one is that I don't think that the game will work, and so people are sad about the fact that there's not going to be a new Diablo. This just doesn't count because it cannot work. It's categorically not going to work. It can still be enjoyable as some sort of app that people are messing around with or whatever, but it's not going to be a Diablo game, so don't try and tell people that it is, and don't try and trick people into thinking that it is. The other one, which is probably the reason this really got to me and bothered me, is that the mobile aspect of it is kind of like a symbol for what a lot of things that are happening with game development in terms of casualization and aggressive monetization of games. And so I need to be transparent here. Before I talk about this, I need to let you know kind of where I'm coming from as a person. We've talked about this before briefly on my channel, but I don't like social media. Social media scares me and makes me very anxious. I know it's a double standard to say that in a YouTube video that I'm going to put on YouTube. I know that is a huge double standard, but it is genuinely true that I dislike and am scared of social media, because I've seen it manifest as a very destructive addiction in a lot of people in my life, including myself. I've seen it damage a lot of young people. I think social media is something extremely powerful that happened very, very quickly to us as a society, and we just don't know exactly what it is doing to us yet, what long-term consequences it has, but we've opened Pandora's box and we're consuming it at this extremely accelerated rate that we don't have time to slow down and get a perspective on it. It scares me. I have a YouTube channel, but I don't have any other social media, more or less. One thing that came up in this developer interview when the guy was on stage, which was physically painful to watch, and I mean that again literally. I had physical pain in my chest trying to watch it because of how awkward it was and how awful the whole situation was. They went, well, don't you have a cell phone? Well, I actually decided that I wanted to show you my cell phone in this video. It's my cell phone right here. The only reason I own this is that the company that I work for here in Japan require me to have some sort of cell phone. Because if there's an emergency, they need to get in touch with me. If I don't show up for work one day, they need to be able to know if I've just overslept, or whether or not, you know, I have a medical emergency and they need to get in touch with the police or whatever. So they require me to keep some sort of cell phone. I bought this for, I don't remember how much, but like no money. And it's the kind of phone that you charge with cash in a convenience store and then you can use it. So I use that maybe less than once every 6 months. And when I left Europe and came to Asia, because I felt very weird and anxious about the way I was consuming social media, the way I was constantly checking my phone, I wanted to try and reconstruct my life in a way where I wasn't using a telephone. And so I tried, and it worked. I've been without a real cell phone for 4 years now. When I meet up with people, you know, my friends, it's a little bit difficult because they know they need to get in touch with me before I leave the house if they want to change the appointment, the place, or, you know, let me know they're going to be late, because when I leave the house you can't get in touch with me anymore, and that's created some unfortunate situations, but it's a sacrifice I'm very willing to make for how much better it's made me feel. The fact that I don't have a smartphone next to my bed that I check in the morning, that I check before bed, So, I mean, if you like social media and you're into your phone and all of that, I mean, more power to you. There are all these positive aspects to it as well, but I just want to be a little bit transparent of what kind of a person I am before I talk about this. Because these casual mobile games feel very cynical. I feel like they're preying on the young. I feel like, and then they're being monetized in these very aggressive ways. Now, I used to be a trained economist. I worked for a very large bank back in Europe. And that made me very distrustful of large corporations like that. I am a little bit of a tinfoil guy, and so I did quit my job and I did leave the country. Not because I thought I was being watched or anything like that, but I just wanted to try and like start over somewhere else. So, I mean, I'm not going to pretend I understand what goes on inside the walls of Blizzard, but I do have a lot of bad faith towards large corporations. I'm very cynical about what they do to society and how they view people, let's say. And so if you think about the other games that Blizzard make, World of Warcraft is a game that you buy, but then you pay a monthly subscription fee, and you pay for it every month, and then they release a new expansion every once in a while, and you have to buy the game sort of again. So it's a game that you buy once, but then you're constantly paying for it in perpetuity. And then you look at a game like Hearthstone, which again, you have 3 expansions per year, but you also, if you want to have the latest competitive decks and you want to try and be really competitive in that game, you need to have a lot of different cards, so you need to constantly buy card packs. So not only are you paying for expansions, you're paying for cards. So it's another game that you are constantly paying for, and they can update and twist it and change it and add new things, but if they do, then you keep on paying for the game forever. Compare that to going into a game store, buying a video game for a fee that you're willing to pay for it, a one-time deal, take that game home, and then you sit in privacy, offline, disconnected, and you just play that game until you're satisfied that you've played it enough, and then you stop playing it. I mean, it's 2 worlds apart in terms of how you can monetize and how you can profit from a game like that. And so they're coming up with these models for how they can keep this train going. See the exact same thing happening with Hollywood movies, where there's the after credit scene basically already advertising the next movie you need to see in this universe or franchise before you've even finished watching the movie that you're already seeing. We could get into a whole tirade on that and how I feel about that, but maybe that's another video, or maybe I won't talk about that at all because it just makes me sad. But yeah, I think people became cynical about this because okay, when I was in middle school and I was playing Diablo 2, we were still in sort of an age where when people who were playing PC games were social outcasts. It's something that still gets parodied in movies. Being a nerd was difficult back then. Usually you were at home playing video games because you weren't as socially successful as other people or as athletic. You weren't popular. You weren't good at sports or whatever. I mean, it's such a cliche now, but that is genuinely the way it used to work. And people who love Diablo used to play PC games back in those days, so they know what I'm talking about. It's not about social media and sharing and making it like a fun, goofy, casual experience. A lot of us take these experiences quite seriously, and we also try and be very good at the games that we play. I play Tekken, and I'm getting into Soul Calibur right now. They're very difficult games to be good at, but if you're out there and you're one of the RTS guys, one of the FPS guys, minute, small adjustments, constant practice, intense competition with people all over the world who are trying as good as you, or as much as you to be good, just doesn't translate into this sort of weird social media hyper casual monetized experience that a cell phone game usually turns out to be, which is why I think it just triggers all of our cynicism and just makes us sad about the whole situation. I spoke to my girlfriend about this yesterday, about the whole thing, and she was like, well, that's so sad because the people who are working on making this game are probably trying really hard, and you say you love the franchise. Why don't you just try it? I mean, you might be surprised. First of all, like I said, I don't think the game can work, so there's probably no point in trying it out and giving them the benefit of the doubt. But I also feel that the whole thing of turning Diablo into a cell phone app is so cynical that this needs to be the point where we refuse to give them any money in any way. We refuse to give them any energy of ours, because we need to very unambiguously state that we will not be treated this way and that we don't like the direction that this is going in. You can make billions and billions of dollars making hyper casual games. You can try and advertise them to children. You can make microtransactions in the game, and you can trick people into spending more money than they realize, and be very successful doing that. But don't try and take this like old, beautiful, visceral, dark, difficult gaming experience that is Diablo and turn it into fucking Candy Crush. I mean, how dare you, honestly. That's basically my perspective on it, and I am ranting at this point. I could keep on going, but I just needed to sort of, like I say, get this out of my head and into a video so that I can start pretending that it never happened. But I will leave you on a positive note, which is that the backlash has been so intense to this game that obviously people all over the world feel the same as me. If I was the only one who was reacting this way, but everybody else was like already pre-ordering the mobile app or whatever and getting excited about this, I would feel very very ostracized and weird about the whole thing. But it's obviously the case that I'm not alone. And it seems like Blizzard have already been punished for making this grave mistake and for insulting their fans in this way, and I think that's very, very good, and it sort of restores my, I'm not going to call it faith in humanity because I think that's a boring internet cliche, but it makes me a little bit more hopeful about the future of video games. And maybe if they just scrap this really misguided and weird project of theirs right now, they can start putting those resources towards a real Diablo game, and maybe we'll speak again 5 or 6 or 10 years from now about the official reveal of the real Diablo 4. And if that happens, and if I'm still making YouTube when that happens, then I'm going to enjoy that game in darkness and privacy, but I will also make a couple of fun videos talking about it to you guys. And that's the extent of how I'm going to share that experience with others. Thank you so much for watching this video, even though it was very off topic for my channel. Like I say, it was more for my own sake than for your viewing pleasure, but maybe somebody did manage to enjoy it. In that case, I'm very happy about that. I am working on taking content right now. Many of you have been asking for the Elisa guide that I was making. I'm recording it today. I've already recorded about half the parts. They need to be edited together. I have limited time, but it's almost ready. So just hold on for a little bit longer, and it's going to be up very soon. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you again very soon.